All right. Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday, and I have my really good friend Tammy Lynn Connors on with me tonight. Normally, we like to try to come to you guys on the first Tuesday of every month. This first Tuesday just so happened to be my anniversary. So here we are back again on the third Tuesday this month. So glad you're here with me, Tammy. Is it the third Tuesday?
It is. I had to think for a second. I was like, man, this month has went by so quick. Again. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really has. Like, it feels like yesterday we were just talking about like how to stay sober during the holidays, and now here we are, like almost to February.
Right. Now we got to figure out how to navigate through Valentine's Day if you're single. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's really the truth, though. I mean, sometimes that could be a really hard holiday for people, especially when they're single.
True. It's true. It's true. But yeah, so I'm so excited to be here again, as always. I'm going to share us on my Facebook page here. So,
Okay. And maybe you can tell me, I want to hear. I seen the picture of you. I
ah,
commented on it the other day. Tell me about what you're doing. That looked like so much fun.
my picture yesterday.
Yeah.
So I am right now. I'm training for this bodybuilding competition on April 1st, and also we have the Ultimate Thriver through Lavelle. And so I'm planning on winning both of those, but I have a lot of work to do. So the other day I was talking to my trainer. I said, I think I'm going to take some pole dancing classes. He's like, that's a great idea. He's like, that's your upper body and your core. So I kind of teased a little bit like, hey, check out what I'm doing. And then yesterday I posted the picture. I went to my first class yesterday. And let me tell you, the girl was like, do you have any questions? And I'm like, yeah, how many bruises am I going to have? She's like, a lot, all over the place. So yeah, so it was fun. It's cool. I got 6 weeks and we'll see what I do after that. But it's a great class. I'm super excited about it. And I love dancing anyway. So if I can incorporate some of that with that and the music, and I'm excited. My son, on the other hand, Sonya, he wasn't so excited. I called him yesterday right after I got out of class. I was like, by the way, did I tell you that I'm taking pole dancing classes? He's like, Mom. And I'm like, well, it's not like I'm going to go do that, son, right? So in the background, and she's like, what's she doing now? And she has like, I can't even get these words out of my mouth. So yeah, it's fun, why not?
Yeah.
Right?
It looked like a lot of fun, and it does take some strength. I've seen some girls doing it on TikTok, and like they can like walk on the ceiling upside down and
Yeah, girl next to me yesterday, it's a beginner's class I'm in, and I looked at her and she was like swinging around and doing all this stuff, and I was like, how long have you been doing this? And she said she'd been doing it since like June of 21. So she just continually takes the classes over and learns more and more and more. So I was like, well, that makes me feel better, because I was on my first day trying to even figure out how to hold on to the pole, let alone around. So yeah.
that sounds like fun. Hey, Lucille, she says she just wanted to say what's up, and she'll catch us next time she's going to school.
Okay, have a good night at school, Lucille.
And Mike Miller has a page. It's called former heroin addicts. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong, Mike. Maybe you could put it in the comments. But I'm interviewing him on Saturday for my YouTube channel. So he's got a good story. I'm excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe Mike, you and I can hook up sometime too to have you share your story on My Hope. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Tell them. Okay, let's tell everybody about your podcast and your most recent episode.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So this is basically really how I met Sonya. A friend of mine introduced us because she knew that Sonya had a great story of hope. And so I have a podcast called Hope, Helping Other People Evolve. And what I do is I interview people that have been through a struggle to get to a strength. I always say my mission and vision with Hope is this: like, so many people feel like they're all alone in their struggles at home, and they could hear Sonia's story or Carlicia that I interviewed today or AJ's story and get out of bed that day and know that they can get through their struggle. And when I first started it, I started it on my it's crazy how fast time goes, because I'm like, oh yeah, I started my podcast last year, and I'm like, I started in 21, not 22, but I started it on my 17-year sobriety. And I was going to focus just on sobriety. And God was like, no, there's many, many other struggles out there. So today, for instance, I interviewed a young girl. Her name's Carlicia. I work with her dad at the casino, and her parents are divorced. Her dad's remarried, but she lived with her mom in Kentucky, and her mom was killed in a motorcycle accident coming up on 2 years in June. And so she's had to navigate life now, on her own, basically. Of course, she still has her dad here, but she's going to school for forensic psychiatry in Kentucky. And this girl is just, I can't wait to launch it because she was just a delight. Like her smile, I told her, I said, you got to brighten every room you walk into. And just to know what she's been through, just in life in general, not just the loss of her mom, but she went through some teenage stuff too, and she can still be the light to the world and still navigate life. And that's what my podcast is all about. Just knowing, like you, Sonya, I look at your story and I tell people all the time, man, if you hear her story, my story is nothing. But that's how we feel, right? When we listen to other people's stories. So yeah, that's what it's about. So Mike, I would love to have you on my podcast too. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. He says he would be honored.
Awesome.
And the name of his page is Former Addicts Against Heroin. I'm sorry, I always get it messed up, but I do join. I'm a part of it, and I do post stuff and comment in it. I see it all the time.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tori, actually, I just did a podcast, or not a podcast. I did a YouTube with Tori the other day. Her story is pretty amazing too.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the stories out there are incredible, aren't they, Sonya?
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's the thing. Like you were just saying about like hearing my story, when I hear your story, like that's how I feel too. It's like when you hear a different story, even though like the roads that we walked are different, the feelings that we have at the end are always the same.
Yes. Yeah. And I say, we always say you throw your problems in a pile, you're going to go run and grab your own problems back again.
Right.
The last girl that I interviewed before this one, she witnessed her father shoot her mother and then shoot himself. And she was older when this even happened, but still, like, then I'm like, shit, mine was nothing, right? Because you're like thinking of the trauma that somebody goes through. But like she said, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what you go through. And that's what Carlicia said today too. And especially if you have your faith, I'm a big believer in God, and I know that you are too. And that's what's gotten me through my struggles for sure. Still to this day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could kind of talk about that for a minute, because I do think that's very interesting. I think a lot of people that have been through really hard times, sometimes like when we're in our darkness, that's where we find God at. Sometimes we have to be like just completely broken and shattered and in the dark to finally look up and find God.
For sure. That's when so growing up throughout my life, I always knew that there was God. I don't know how many times I accepted Jesus into my life. Like every church I would go to, and I'd always be searching. And I accepted him every time. Like I knew that Jesus was in my heart. Right. But that day that I quit, that I knew that I had to quit drinking or I was going to die. And I laid on that floor and I screamed and I cried and I kicked. And I knew at that moment that God had always been there. It's like that footprints, like, where were you at, God, through this time? And he's like, I was carrying you. And through all those times, he carried me. And now he was like, I am going to put you down and we're going to do this together. And and all the people he placed in my life throughout years that were there for me to get through that part of my recovery. It's just, I have nothing but knowing that that's anybody that wants to fight me about God, and we're going to fight, because that he saved my life to this day, and any struggle I go through still to this day. I know he's always there. He never leaves me. And there's days, Sonya, and I'm sure maybe you have these days too, where you're like, God, why aren't you here? And he's here. We have to go through things too in life to learn. He can't just fix everything like this for us, because we'll never learn, and that's something that takes patience. What we were just talking about. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a part of it too. Like if he did just fix everything, then we wouldn't learn and we would go back and we would do it again, And for me, like I have to, or not always have to, let me not say that, but tend to be a hard learner and hard-headed and stubborn. So my best lessons come from my mistakes, but I have to feel the wreckage and the consequences of my mistakes to really learn my lesson from it. So I think that's why, like when we do something, every action has a consequence, whether that be a good consequence or a bad consequence. The decision is in what we choose to do. So we have to deal with the consequences of that.
That's huge. I talk about that a lot. Like, no matter what, we have choices every day, right? And there's a consequence to those choices, whether it's a good or a bad. There's always going to be a consequence. And sometimes, like you said, I'm hard headed too, boy. Those learning lessons sometimes, finally, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. How many times are you going to allow this to keep happening? Get it, right? I try to do it my way, right? My way's going to work, and not so much, but but learning from them, right? And that's and having patience with ourselves and having grace with ourselves. That's and forgiving ourselves. The other word we talked about, right? Because
Yeah.
and forgiving ourselves, I think, like, especially in addiction, we have to we look back, and I mean, the things that we did to ourselves, the things that we did to our family, the things that we did to our children, the things that, we did against God, even, we have to forgive ourselves for that. And I can never, ever forget that when Jesus was hanging on the cross and he said, forgive them for they know not what they do,
Mhm.
at that time in our life, we were just navigating with what we thought was best for us, so that forgiveness is huge, huge.
Yeah. I was just talking about this yesterday. Like the problem that I had when I got into recovery, it wasn't that I ever had a bad concept of God. Like I always knew God was there and I always knew that God was for me, but
Mhm.
I always felt unworthy to come to him because I had so much unforgiveness in myself.
Yes.
And I think that for me, that's why it was so important for me to learn to do the steps, because I needed to make peace with me and recognize, that I had a part in some things that I didn't think I had a part in. And then make a peace with those things that I, had done wrong. So,
Right.
but that helped me to feel worthy enough to come to God. It shouldn't be like that though.
No.
I mean, he wants us to come to him now, right now, no matter what, no matter where we are, because even in the midst of my darkness, he was there with me,
Yeah.
walking me through, just like you said, like the footprints. He carried
Right.
me through those times. That's why I'm still here today, because if it was up to me, I would not be here anymore because of the things that I was doing. I was out there, I didn't care if I lived or died.
Right.
But God carried me through that.
Right. I think that worthiness too, when you talk about that, like, I felt so much shame and everything in who I was, the guilt, the unworthiness, the hopelessness. And I talk about this when I share my story, that when I quit drinking, that day I went to my friend's mom's house, who was a pastor. Her parents were pastors. And when they used to come into my work, I would go like almost hide because they were pastors. Like, oh my gosh, they think I'm the devil, right? And they never did, but that's how I felt about myself with them, like the guilt and the shame and the unworthiness and the hopelessness and all of that from myself. But they didn't feel that way, and God doesn't feel that way, and that's where I think a lot of people have a hard time coming to the realization of who they are and their worth, because we feel like we're so unworthy. And like you said, doing the steps and learning, who you were didn't make you unworthy at all. And God loves us all through all of it. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah,
Huge.
I seen this thing on TikTok one time where this guy takes $100 bill, right? And he
Mm.
in front of a whole crowd of people and he crumples it up. Well, first he shows him, he says, "See this? What is it?" It's $100 bill. Then he crumples it up in his hand and he's like, "Okay, what is it?" And everybody's like, $100 bill. Then he throws it on the ground, steps on it, smashes it all down, picks it back up. What is it? It's still $100 bill. Just because of the things that we've been through, that we've been beaten and bruised and crumbled and shattered, our worth never changed.
Right. That's right. That's so powerful. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. I just saw that again. Somebody just did it with a dollar bill the other day. I saw it again too. And it's so profound because it's truth. No matter how much tattered and shredded and all of that, and that dollar bill's like gross, or that $100 bill is gross, someone still was like, it's $100. It's still worth $100. So no matter what we've been through, broken, beaten, shattered, crumbled, feel unworthy, feel hopeless, we still are your Sonya Johnson still. I'm Tammy Connors still.
That's right.
Our worth is so much more than we even give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a comment real quick because
Okay.
I know that you have some experience on this with a family member. Anyways, Stacy says, I have a daughter on some things now, and this has helped me. I just wish I knew how to help her.
Yeah. It's I just got a message from somebody today too saying, hey, my ex-husband is a mess, and I ran into another girl today. It's funny that this comment came across because I ran into a girl today that had reached out to me a little while ago about her son. And I asked her, how's everything going? She's like, he still won't talk to me because he lives with his dad, who's a practicing alcoholic. I said, right now, all you can do is, if he's not speaking to you, that the prayers, that's unfortunately that's all we can do. And Sonya, I know you talk about your mom. She prayed for you every day, right?
Yeah, she sure did. And I
Yeah.
was a hot mess express. And
Yeah.
she tried for a while. She tried to help me, but every time that she tried to help me, she was actually just making it worse because she was enabling my behavior. So, oh, she says she's actually on flocka and meth. That's really that flakka is something else, man. That stuff is something else. That's that walking zombie drug that they talk about.
I don't even know what that is, honestly. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's similar, I think, like bath salts, similar to meth, but a little bit more potent and a little bit stronger. But so my mom would try to help me, like she would pay my rent or pay my phone bill or give me money for food or, you know, whatever I told her I needed because I was never really being honest. I mean, maybe I did need those things, but I actually didn't spend the money on those things. I spent the money on drugs, or give me a ride every morning to, the methadone clinic. And really, I'd be going to meet the drug dealer, so it just, her help wasn't helpful, even though she had came from pure intentions. Like it just wasn't helpful because I wasn't ready. So the best thing that she ever did for me was cut me off. And she didn't like stop talking to me. She just wouldn't do anything for me that would fuel my addiction. And I always say, like, if you have a family member that's in addiction, if they're hungry, give them a meal, feed them, give them a meal. Don't give them money for the meal. Give them a meal. If they need a shower, I mean, if you want to give them a shower, if your boundaries will allow that, but never money, and never a place to stay, because unfortunately it's got to get bad before it will get better. And, I really, when my mom cut me off, it didn't get better right away. It took some time. It took some months, maybe even a year or two. But then I finally did get better. And, she was a little apprehensive at first, I would say. She was a little afraid to hope for too much.
Mhm.
But she did. She always believed in me. She was just waiting for me to come around.
Right, right. And I know, like, I belong to a group. It was called Families and Addicts Coming Together, and the gentleman that started that group had lost two of his children, one to car overdose or car fentanyl overdose or something like that. Called it. I think like his son never really used anything. Him and his girlfriend did eat ball or something. He died. He's still in a wheelchair. But his daughter, he had lost right a year before that. I think it had been a year before that, and hers heroin overdose. And he talked a lot in that group about enabling, and he enabled his daughter a lot, And he said, and it's such a hard thing, Sonya, because we sit here and we're still here, blessed to be here, right? But you and I have both lost a lot of those people to overdoses, and I always think that if like my niece, I had to cut my niece off for 3 years. The only time she called me is when she was in jail and she would be getting out, and I would always try to help her to find a place to go, but I never gave her the money or anything, And every time she would get out, she'd be back on the streets again, But I learned that enabling her and giving her cash or something, what if that $25 I gave her was a $25 that ended her life? How
Right.
horrible I feel. I mean, you hate to think like that, but it's true. And I ended up I did get a phone call from my niece in 2018, on it was like Halloween time, and I got a phone call that she had been dropped off at the hospital dead. Some man off for the emergency room and handed her over. They were able to bring her. She was, I think, 10 minutes the oxygen to her. Two more times after that. She was on a ventilator for 6 days. And by the grace of God, she's still with us. Actually, I went and visited her the other day. We haven't seen her since pre-COVID. She lives in a brain trauma injury house. She was in a nursing home for a while, but now she's in this house. And we haven't seen her. We've talked to her on the phone, but she doesn't really remember. Like, I could call her right now and then hang up and she wouldn't remember I called. She might not even remember we visited, but she was she's developing a lot. Her mind is probably about a 15, 16-year-old, but she was just giggly and happy to see us. And we joked and we had a nice time. And I think to myself, it's sad that that's how she is, but it's also not, because God saved her and she's happy now. She's living the best life that she can compared to tricking and stripping and doing all the things that you do, in that time. And so that me cutting her off, though, was what I had to do for me, for my boundaries. And as a mom, it's hard, and I sit here and I have a sister that's a practicing alcoholic addict. And I've had to set my boundaries. Like, nope, I can't do this anymore for you. And it's one of the hardest things to do, but it's the best thing that I could do for her and me. Pray, 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 pray.
Yeah. And just to add to the pray part. So what happened with my mom, this happened in the early years of my addiction. I know you've heard me tell this story, Tammy, but, so I was 18, no, I was 20, 21 or 22. And I don't remember how old I was. I was high at the time, but anyways, I was like, in my early years of addiction, and I was out with a guy who was at the time being very abusive to me. I was in a domestic violence relationship, and we were out using, and my mom hadn't heard from me in 4 days, which was unusual at that point in time. And
Mhm.
she was scared for my life. And the last time that she seen me, I was like 90 pounds, had bruises all over me. She was worried sick about me. So she was worrying, obsessing about me all night, crying and praying. And one night she just laid down face first on the floor and just started praying to God. And she said that she closed her eyes and envisioned herself carrying me in her arms and laying me at the foot of the cross, laying me in Jesus' feet. And what that was it was an act of surrender, right? She surrendered me that night. And after that happened, she said she felt peace and she was able to go to sleep. She got woke up to a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from the sheriff's department. They had arrested me. They got me that night. It was my first arrest. That's how I know I was pretty young. And it was, this is the messed up part, but really it's not. I get it. It was $200 to get me out of jail, $250 to get my car out of impound. Do you know she went and got my car out of impound, let my ass sit in jail that night?
Because she knew where you were at.
Yes.
You knew where you were at. You were safe that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I know there's been so many times, like with my niece, when she would be in jail, I'd be like, okay, she's in jail, she's fine. My ex, it was the same thing. Like, his mom would always say it too. Like, if he's in jail, we know that he's good. He's not on the streets, hurting somebody, hurting himself, whatever, And that's a sad thing to say, but it's such a truthful thing at the same time,
Yeah.
And anybody out there suffering with the addiction, or with the person that is in the active addiction, I pray every day. And when I pray in the morning, I pray for everybody. Like, sometimes I put names in there if I know them, but other than that, because it's so tough out here, and I know that, and all I can do is pray.
Yeah.
What should she say? God save
Uh,
my.
that's Mike. He said, God
Oh.
saved my life. It was when I cried out in desperation. And I think that's like what we're trying to get around to, is when somebody finally reaches that desperation, that's when they are ready to make the change. So, Tammy, here's another comment. I know you have some experience with this as well, like going through a really tough year. She's going to be 18 years clean. Matter of fact, sounds like you guys have a lot in common. I'm going to be 18 years clean from meth in March 22nd. And this last year has been a struggle. I have lost a lot in the last year, and finding the strength has been tough. From Nikki. You want to talk about what happened with you in 2020 and 2000?
Sure. And so, what's her name? Is it Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard for me because it's little itty bitty letters. But so I always share this a little bit because I'm coming up on 19 years March 9th. So we're kind of like in the same month, which is cool. Um, and I always say this about Sonya and I and whoever else is in recovery. Like, we don't walk outside and there's a big bubble around us, and God's like, oh, I'm going to protect them. You know, nothing's going to harm them. And I recall one of my biggest things that I ever went through was in 2012. And that was my bonus son had been my stepson basically since he was 18 months old. And in 2012, at 26 years old, he was killed in a single car drinking and driving accident. He had left the bar very inebriated. I, wish nobody would have gave him the keys. He ended up missing a curve, which is on his normal way home. And we lost him in the accident. And the thing that I've always said is that through that tragedy, I had a choice to pick up again or not. And I chose not to, because for me, what good am I going to do for anybody if I ever do that again? So we got through that, and I had to help my son, my son, who's his half brother, navigate through that. He was 22 years old. And now I had lost his son in 92 to SIDS, and now he lost his other brother. So here's my son has two brothers and they're both gone. Right. And so I had to be a strength for him. Now, 2020, we come to, right? My son's 30 at the time, everything's good and basically in life. And February 14th, Valentine's Day, my best friend who had been clean for about 6 years, I had messaged him the night before, said, hey, you want to go to Planet Fitness? He's like, I'm not really feeling it. I'm at work tonight. I don't feel great. I have a headache. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe tomorrow. And he said, well, you can come down. The Newsboys are playing next door at a concert for $6. I'm like, yeah, I'm in my workout clothes. And I wish I would have went down there. Maybe I could have saved him, maybe not. But he took a Percocet that night, and it was had fentanyl in it. And we lost him the next day on Valentine's Day at 34 years young, And so thinking of that was one of the hardest things that I've been through in a really long time, probably since 2012. And I navigated through that with a lot of praying and a lot of strength, knowing, for one thing, I always think this, I will see them again one day. And that's my biggest thing that I always say when I have my boys tattooed on my leg, and they'll be like, oh, are those your, first they ask if they're my grandkids now. And I'm like, no, those are my kids. But I always say I'll see Cody again one day in heaven, and I'll see Nick again one day in heaven. And I have to remember that. And I know that maybe they're gone, but I have a purpose here. My purpose is to be the light to the world and to offer others hope. And if I go down that rabbit hole of, I don't want to be like this to you at all, Nikki, but if I go down that rabbit hole of feeling sorry for myself, then that's a horrible rabbit hole for me to go down. So I have to keep persevering. I have to keep myself prayed up. I have to do the things, I feel like I talk about, we have a toolbox, right, that we learn, like through addiction. You have tools that you learn throughout your sobriety, and those tools are meant to be used. They're not meant to sit in a locked toolbox. We have to get in there, and we have to, and it's not easy, and when we talk about 2022, I continue on that year. April 3rd, my friend called me from Arizona. Now we're on lockdown from COVID. She calls me from Arizona to tell me that our good friend was just shot 14 times by her ex-husband to be, and murdered in her car, and I can't do anything, like I said, I'm always the one, I try to be the one to keep things together, and I'm stuck here in Toledo. I can't even fly out to Arizona because you can't fly at that time. And to go through that, and then to navigate with her kids, and to be able to help her kids get through it. And then August of 2020, my mom passed away, and I lost her. And here I was, this was like, she was my purpose pretty much. I took care of her. So now she was gone. And I'm like, now I had to navigate a new Tammy Lynn Connors. Like, I don't have anybody to take care of but me. And what I learned through all this, Nikki, and this, I don't know if there's people that, when you lost these people, that you are still like in contact with, But through this, like I'm very good friends with my friend Josh's mom. I always have been, but his family's very close to me. But my friend Christy, that was murdered by her ex-husband to be, they left 4 kids, 2 older boys and 2 younger girls. The boys were like 19 and 21, I think, and the girls were 8 and 10. I've actually interviewed the oldest son and his fiance in my podcast. But through all of that, they have asked me to officiate their wedding this year. And if I would have gave up on me through all of that tragedy and all of that, I wouldn't have that honor to be there to show their mom, because I know their mom's up there watching, and be like, hey, be proud of these kids and look what they've done out of your tragedy. And I think that that's where my podcast comes in, struggles to strength. We all go through struggles a lot through life, and every day's not easy. It's not, and Sonya can attest to it. She's busy right now, right? You're trying to navigate busyness, and it's not easy. But like I said, Nikki, we have those tools, and those tools are so important, and not to lose yourself. I get up every morning. I take a vitamin every morning, and then I pray every morning. I listen to something that's going to lift me up. Sometimes I have to listen to a David Goggins. I have to listen to somebody in your face, like, get your ass up and do something. Or sometimes I need a little fluff, like a Joyce Myers or somebody, right? Or Joel Osteen. You know what I mean? But you need to find what you need. And I always say, I'm here to chat with anybody that needs, a little bit of help in that navigation. Sometimes I'm not a victim, more victorious person. So I don't lay down too much and feel sorry for myself. So, yeah.
I just love what you shared, because what we were talking about in the beginning, like going from a struggle into a strength, and sometimes like you have to go through those dark moments to really find the light. And what you shared, and I just thank you so much for sharing that. But what you shared is like, when you went through all of that, then you found yourself, right? Because you didn't have really anything left to take care of. So you just focused on you, right?
Yeah. And that was,
Yeah.
honestly, that's been a lot. And actually, so, like I said, I focused on, and 21, I moved out to Arizona. I was like, I'm moving out to Arizona. I don't have anything to do. I'm just going to pack up and go. And I did. Well, the God brought me back to Toledo, which was a really hard thing for me. And right now it's a really hard thing because seasonal depression is real. I'm not going to lie, man. It's cloudy here every day. It's rainy. It's gloomy. It takes everything in my soul to get up and go do something. But for the first time since I can even remember, am by myself. Like, literally by myself. I live in my house by myself. There's no relationships there. It's everything is by myself. And I've had to really sit by myself. And I've had to go through some things, I've had to look back and go through some forgiveness of things. And I've had to have a lot of patience through things, and, learning to navigate differently, not taking care of people. But at the end of the day, since I had those tools that I've had all these years through my sobriety, I know what I can use in order to get through those days. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So maybe we could go into that for a minute. Oh, hey, Brad, I see you. So as cool as on. We just figured out the backdrop literally right before we started. It was so cool. um, but maybe we could talk about that for a minute, right? Like you were just saying, like we were talking before we started, and I was just sharing with Tammy, like my life is so busy right now. Like before I started this job, I was already busy, but now I am really busy. Like I'm literally every single day until mid-February during the day and at night, my schedule is full. Which is crazy, but I'm learning how to do it. But I'm not going to continue down this like busy pattern. Like I was sharing with you, Tammy, I feel like I kind of got a word, and the word was, there's a story in the Bible about Mary and Martha, right? And Jesus comes into town, and he's coming to Mary and Martha's house, and Martha's just busy trying to get everything ready, make it all perfect for Jesus while he's there. And Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet, just staring at him in awe. And I feel like God gave me a word on that this week. And what I hear. And then Martha was mad, right? Martha was mad. She's like, how come Mary gets to sit on her badonkey donk and do nothing while I'm getting everything ready?
Mhm.
And Jesus said, but look at how intense Mary, I can't remember the exact words. I don't even want to say it misquoted, but he basically said, look at what Mary's doing though. She's focused on me. And
Mhm.
um, so I got a word with that this week, right? Like I'm Martha right now. I'm doing the most. I've got all this stuff going on and it's all good stuff. Matter of fact, everything that's going on is so good that I don't know where to trim the fat. There's literally nowhere that I can say, well, this can go or this can go. Everything is just so good that I'm just being patient. And that's what I wanted to get into, right? Because I was sharing with Tammy before we started, I've been praying about this and kind of waiting to see what is God's will for me? Like, what does He want me to keep? What does He want me to lose? And I know that something is have to change, but sometimes you just have to wait for God to give you an answer. And it was really cool because Tammy was sharing that is her word for this year.
It is. It is. Patience is my word for this year because, Sonia, we live in such a microwave society. Everybody wants everything now, 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 now. Even like you said, so you're Martha right now, right? Martha doing everything, making sure everything's good, 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 good. And then you're like, but wait, what am I really supposed to be doing right now? Right. And now you're like, but now I got to wait and I got to pray and I got to ask God and God will show me. But do we have the patience to wait and find out? Or are you going to keep being so busy? And I just want to give you a little bit of advice that my pastor Nancy told me one time. She said, don't get too busy because you get too busy, even if it's all good busy, Satan knows how to do that, right? And he knows how to keep you off of what you need to really focus on, which is yourself. And so I remember her telling me that and it stuck with me. And I've told a lot of people like that. Like I have a really good friend of mine and he owns a vending machine business, right? And he's the only employee because of COVID and all of that. So it's just him. And when I first met him, he meditated and he was like at this calm, at this peace. And now he's just like busy, 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 busy. And he's sick and he's busy. And I'm like, slow down. You have to meditate again. You have to get in your space again. Because what happens is Satan knows, and I never like to give Satan that much power, but he knows exactly how to keep you so busy that your focus goes off of God and off of Sonya. And
Mhm.
and the downfall starts happening. And now we gotta try to step and get out of that again, and navigate again. So just make sure that you're staying prayed up and healthy.
Yeah,
Very
for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
and that's a thing, like staying I actually I can honestly say that in the last like 2 weeks, this is a new thing. My mother-in-law came down. I don't know if you knew that or not, but Steve's mom was here. I think we've talked
Oh yeah.
about her
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And she's a pastor and so we were prayed while she was here and I got this book called The Spirit-Filled Bible. So I'm really excited. I actually started reading it a few nights ago. But I feel like, I've been connecting in that way in my prayer life. But I definitely have to be very mindful, like you said. Like, I need to be mindful that I'm focusing in here, like what's going on with me.
Mhm.
A few years ago, I learned a lesson from somebody. There was a woman in our local area, and she passed away from an overdose. And when she passed away, I didn't know her very well. When she passed away, everybody, literally at least 100, maybe more, maybe hundreds of people posted or spoke or something about this woman and all of these amazing things that she did for them. She took their kids, she paid their rent, she took them to detox, she did this. I mean, she just did everything for everybody. I was just like so blown away at all the stuff she'd done. But somewhere along the way, like she missed this.
Yes.
And it was a
Yes.
lesson for me because I'm like, wow, at that time I was about as busy as I am right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
but
A perfect of that is Twitch. I don't know if everybody knows who Twitch is or not or was, but he was on whatever that show was. So you can dance or whatever it was, and he won. And then he was on the Ellen show as a DJ, and he was always happy and he was always dancing. And him and his wife looked so happy, and they had kids together, and Christmas looked great, and they had just celebrated an anniversary. And he took his own life. And, I think about that. I think about Robin Williams, these people that are out there and they're doing their best to make everybody else so happy and to live their best life, and inside they're crushed. And if we get to that, sometimes when we're busy like that, I'm not saying that that's what, of course they have some mental illnesses that they're dealing with and depression and things, but we can get so focused on helping everybody else that we lose us, like you said with that lady. Like there was a guy that was with Teen Challenge, I think it was, and he had been in recovery for years, and the same thing, like he would drive hundreds of miles to pick people up to take them to teen recovery and to help them, everything like that. And he ended up overdosing, and people were like, wait, what? Because you get so busy helping everybody else in the world, and then just that one day it's like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I lost who I was. And we don't ever need to do that. That's a big. I had a girl message me the other day, and she said, Tammy, this is what she said to me, and I don't know what made her say it. She's like, you don't have to help the entire world. You're doing a great job, and you are the light in the world. And I thought, did I post something that made it sound like I was, but not? I don't feel like that at all. And I told her, I'm like, oh no, trust me, I take care of me too. I make sure that I am taken care of. And I have a friend that I talk to every single day. Her and I talk, and we go through if we're going through things, right? Because our mind is like a chatterbox. Yesterday I was at the gym, and I got to share this, and especially for the ladies, and I'm sure guys do this too, they just don't talk about it. I did a spin class yesterday too. Like I haven't done that either. So I had like 3 classes I did yesterday, which was crazy. But at the end, our instructor, she played a video, and it was from a TikTok, and it was this. So I used to work out all the time. I'm going to act like I'm a lady talking. I used to work out all the time, and then I quit. So I decided on my birthday, by February 18th or whatever, I'm going to lose this much weight in 2023, and I'm going to, keep going and stuff like that. She's like, so I got up and I got dressed and I got to the gym, and there's these ladies on the treadmill, and they're kind of going slow. And I was like, yeah, ladies, that's what you need. Just get that little bit of start, however you got to do it. She's like, I get on the treadmill and I'm going, and I hear this lady say to me, really? If that's all the faster you're going to walk, how are you ever going to lose weight? And she's like, I did it for a minute, and she just wouldn't stop. So I walked away like, really? Okay. She's like, I went in the locker room. I put on my bathing suit to go swimming. And there's that lady again. And she's like, really? You're going to wear that? Like anybody wants to see you like that. How dare you go? She's like, I couldn't get away from this lady. So I get in the pool and I swim and I get out, and there's that lady again. And she's like, wow, that really helped, didn't it? Look at you, still fat. And she said, do you know who that lady was? It was me. So everybody should think about that. Do you know how hard we are on ourselves? There's nobody out there that's harder on us than we are ourselves. We're the biggest bully that you'll ever meet in your entire life. Like when you said unworthy, hopeless, I'm ugly, all the things that somebody told us, that lie sometime in our life, we started believing it, and then we feed it. They talk about feeding your ego. I think people don't feed their ego as much as they feed how bad they really are. I guess that would still be your ego, but it's like, how mean are we to ourselves? And that's a big problem. And I deal with that. I'm not going to lie. I'm going through this bodybuilding competition. You don't know how many days I wake up and it's cloudy and it's gloomy outside. And I'm like, why are you doing this? That voice in my head says, why are you doing this? You don't have to go to the gym today. I have to convince myself, I'm out here and I'm a hope dealer and I'm all that and I'm the light in the world, but I'm the straight up person to tell you I struggle still with things. And I think that's a big thing that people need to know too, Sonya. We don't just get up every day and everything's bright and beautiful. We have struggles, and we still get through them though, because we've learned,
Yeah. And I think that point right there, like, so last time that we talked, right, I had stopped going to the gym. Well, I've been going to the gym again. It's only been 2 weeks, but I've been going to the gym again. But I feel that way too, because I stopped going for 6 weeks, and now I've been going, and it's like, it's hard to get back into the routine, and like my body's sore. I'm like, man, do I want to do this again today? But I think it's like that self-discipline, right? Like telling that voice in our head to shut up
Yes.
and going and doing it. And then what happens afterwards? Like, we feel so good that we did it. We're proud of ourselves. We're, feeling good again. So I think sometimes we just have to like shut the door on that voice.
Yeah, yeah. I know that David Goggins, if anybody follows him, I don't know, but he's like an in your face kind of guy. But he says this in his book: either you're going to control your mind or your mind's going to control you. And that is a fact. I read a book called, I'm throwing some books out here. It's called The Untethered Soul. It's so good. I think it's Michael Stinninger or Michael somebody. Such a good book for anybody to read. But he talks about this, the inner voice. And he said, answer me this question. If you're sitting on a park bench next to you, let's just say, would you say the things that you say to yourself in your head to that person sitting there? Heck no. I wouldn't say things I say to myself to somebody sitting next to me. They would look at me like, wow, you are straight up mean, right? Because we're so hard on ourselves. And there's a book also by Stephen Furtick. He's a pastor out of Greenville, South Carolina, or somewhere down there. But it's called The Chatterbox. And when I say it is a good book, it is like the truth of the truth of the truth. How you can go, he talks about this rabbit hole. Like, he took the garbage out and there were all these styrofoam balls that his wife had put in there or something in a box, and they all went all over the place. And he knew his wife was going to get mad. So then he was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be so mad at me. She's probably going to divorce me. I'm going to end up being an alcoholic. I'm going to end up being a drug addict. I'm going to live on the streets. Like, he told himself all of these things. And that's what we do to ourselves. It's that chatterbox that we have to zip it, get it to shut up, and know who we really are, and learn who we really are, and learn how to control our mind.
Well, I never thought of it that way. Like, when I first got in clean, and still today, sometimes like I had to learn how to stay in the moment, because I just kept getting like way ahead of myself. I got to get my kids back. I got to get a job. I got to get off probation. I got to get my case plan done. I got to get a house. I got to get a car. I got to get a driver's license. I got to do everything, and then I had to like learn how to stop and just, what's the next thing that I have to do? But that also works with like the thoughts that come in your mind, right? Because you have all these like intrusive thoughts, and then you can just stop, get into the moment, say, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. What's the next thing that I'm going to do?
Yes. Yeah. And not let that talk you out of going to the gym.
Yes. The next thing to do is go to the gym.
Afterwards, even if you just go, like today, I just went on the stair stepper for 10 minutes because my trainer canceled on me today. And I was like, and I was almost convinced myself, I got to do a podcast at 5:30, and then I'm on Sonya's at 7. I don't really need to go. And I said, go get on the stair stepper for 10 minutes. At least you did something today, and I feel better because I did, so that.
Yeah, I got to do that too. I know. Let's try. We got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to try to catch up on this real quick. But just so you know, we will be back again on the first Tuesday of February and the first Tuesday of every month after that. So just, if we don't get to your comment, we will get you again. Come join us again soon.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Tracy says, God works in mysterious ways and is always there for you. Amen, sister.
Absolutely.
Stacy says, all we can do is pray and know sometimes I can't sleep because I know what she's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Stacy, I'll definitely put you in my prayers, and your daughter.
Yeah. Meadow. Oh, I love that name. Says, love you, Sonya. You're an inspiration. I love your videos. Been struggling with oxys and your videos give me hope. So thank you.
Good.
Oh, I got to tell you a story. Oh my gosh. I hope this girl doesn't mind me telling this story. So last night I got a message from somebody. And I get messages from people from time to time, pretty often actually. But this girl was telling me her story. Her and her husband live in Australia. She might even be on here right now. I don't know. Her and her husband live in Australia, and they started going down the wrong path together, and they wound up losing custody of their children. Well, then a few years later, she got pregnant again. They decided they were going to get clean so that they could not lose this child, right? So they did. She got through the pregnancy. It's very similar to my story too, that I, quit while I was pregnant. Anyways, 3 months after or 3 weeks after, they picked up again, right? Mm-hmm. And then one day she's like, what am I doing? So she stopped, but he didn't stop. And then she spent the next X amount of time trying to get him clean, and it wasn't working because, as we know, you can't get somebody clean. Right. So one day She was laying on her bathroom floor crying, watching one of my videos, and the guy walks in the door after being out on a binge. And he walks in and he sees the video and he says, grow the F up. What are you doing? And then walks away. And she said, she's like, in that moment, she's like, I looked at him and I thought, this is not the person that I fell in love with. Well,
Mhm.
2 weeks later, he says to her, he's like, I need to find God. And come to find out, he had been watching ever since that night in the bathroom. He had been watching our videos and he saw one of Steve's videos and decided that he wanted to get clean. They both have, today is 119 days clean. I
Oh my,
literally cried when I
yeah,
read that message last night.
goosebumps over my whole entire body.
And
And that,
they're like
Sonya,
in another continent.
and that's the thing, I know you get messages. I see you comment sometimes where you have your little comments where somebody's like, why do you keep talking about your sobriety? That's why you keep talking about your sobriety and you never stop. Because I
Mhm.
don't care if I talk about it till the day that, well, I will talk about it till the day I go to my grave. But if I can help one person somewhere in this entire universe, then my job is good. That is
Yep.
what I do. And so I love seeing you and Steve's. I love it. It makes me smile every time I come across TikTok and there you are. I'm like, yeah, there they are. I love them. I, that's awesome. See what you're doing? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, you
amazing.
know what Steve said? He said the same thing. He's like, well, that's the one person. Because when we saw it out, like if we could just help one person, and he's like, that's the person. So that's cool that you just like confirmed that again.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, honestly, I think about it like this too, Sonya. Someone might be on here hearing this today and they might still be using, or they have a child still using or something, but we planted a seed. You know what I mean? And sometimes I think about this just in life in general, everybody. I'm all about kindness and I'm always about giving somebody a smile, saying hello to somebody. You just don't know what their day is like and how you could change it. And sometimes I might run into somebody and share a little bit of some kind of hope of something and leave that person. And who knows, 3 weeks down the road, 3 months down the road, a year down the road, they might be like, oh, I remember Tammy said something about that. And they do something differently then. Those little seeds that we plant, we never know. You never know whose life you're affecting with what you're saying. So that's why I'm always a big believer in being kind, saying hello to someone. Tell somebody they look good today. It's okay. It's okay.
And
I
this
know,
is why we get along so well, Tammy.
right? Well, because you know what? I think that unfortunately we live in a society that's so judgmental. Unfortunately, the judgment is, and I just posted this not too long ago. Man, listen, there's only one judge, and he's up there. So I don't really care what everybody else is going to judge me because I'm a little kooky. I'm a little funny. I like to dance. I'm out there, right? I'm sharing hope. I'm a light, and sometimes people like that energy, and sometimes people think I'm a little too much, but that's okay because I'm just being exactly who God has made me to be. And this is
Yes.
who he wants me to be. And people need, I know what it was. I said, if you ever expect ordinary out of me, I don't know what you're thinking or something like that. And then or normal. I said, what is normal anyways? Who is it to judge what normal is? Stop judging somebody because they wear their hair different or because they talk different or because they dress different than you. You don't know. You might look abnormal to them. We're not here to judge anybody. We're just here to be the best version that we can be, to be the best version for someone else.
That's right.
That's what God wants, is kindness. That's it.
Yep.
You know,
Normal is subjective.
exactly, for sure,
Yep.
for sure.
Okay, let's take a few comments. Tracy said it's really bad here in Sydney, Australia. I think that's where the couple was that messaged me too. She said what they're mixing there. That's pretty what they're doing here too. It's bad.
Yeah.
Casey says it's not a perfect life after we get clean. It's not a perfect life after we turn everything over to God. We still struggle. The devil is still there telling us his lies. The difference is that we don't have to believe those lies. We don't have to go out and use. What we do is give it over to God, pray, call a friend. I do like watching you ladies and your recovery. I should say I love watching you and all those you bring to recovery. Anyways, I could go on and on, but that's but it's not perfect, but we don't have to go out and use. That's right, sister.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for, tuning in. I love hearing people's stories. I love, bringing the light. The biggest thing that I like to say too, and I say this to a lot of people, and I have it tattooed on my right thigh, is the serenity prayer. Here's the thing. You talked about it earlier. You said, you can't change someone else. You said that about that woman with her husband, right? We
Yeah.
can't, hard as we want to, and especially when it's our loved one, we just can't change anyone. If your mom could have waved a magic wand and said, Sonya, you get out of that trap house that you're in, she would have,
Mhm.
right? If we could do that, we would, but we can't. So the serenity prayer, if anybody on here doesn't know it, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, which is you, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's it. Plain and simple, man. I read this thing. I laugh about it because I'm like, yep, I got a tattooed right on my right thigh. So every time I go to the bathroom, which is a lot, it's right there on my leg. Right. So it's just so important to learn that, and to know that, yeah, we're going to still go through the struggles. And like that lady said, but we don't have to stay there. And now we have things to do to get us through those and get that devil's voice out. He knows exactly your triggers. He knows exactly what to say. He knows exactly what to do, and if we have our faith and we believe in God and we really trust in him, he'll get us through it. It might be 30 seconds of a stupid thought, but man, the next minute that God's there, he'll get us right back to where we need to be, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Jacqueline has been commenting a lot. And one thing I think she says her daughter's overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start. So I was going to suggest, like, if she's dependent on drugs and alcohol, the best place to start is at a hospital or a detox center. And then aside from that, there's a lot of supports. She could do AA, or I said the same thing, AA, NA, CA, CR. I mean, just look up some acronyms. You'll find something.
Yeah.
Church, therapy. There's a lot of different places to start, but I would just, look into your community to find when she is ready that you do have something to tell her of where she can go.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. And there's so much out there now. When I
Yeah.
quit ago, there was stuff out there, but not anything like now. Now, like,
Mhm.
Google an acronym and you're going to find something for rehab.
Yeah, just put a
Yeah.
letter in front of an A and you're golden. You'll
Right.
find some.
So so true.
Oh, hey, Kenny. This is my friend I was in rehab with. Of course, I remember you, Kenny. Yes, I
Oh,
do.
yeah. That's awesome.
Okay. This Misty, she was here with us a few weeks ago. We were talking about her daughter who's in jail right now. I think her daughter's getting ready to get out right now. So glad to see you on here tonight, Misty. Yeah. Yeah. She says, when people seem like their lives are just amazing 100% of the time and never hear about their struggle, make sure you sit them down and talk to them and ask them what's going on. Yes,
Yes.
that's true.
That's true. And that's why like I said, you will see my Facebook, my Instagram, everything is always as uplifting as I can be, right? But I don't lie. I don't tell everybody my life is rainbows and unicorns. It's not. And I want people to know that, yeah, I still struggle and I still go through things. But now I have, like I've said 10 times tonight, the tools to get through those things, but I don't ever want anybody because okay, here's the real deal on social media. It's highlight reels of people's lives, right? You're
Oh.
gonna see the dad holding the baby up and at the beach and the happy family, and then 2 days later they're getting divorced, and you're like, wait a minute, you guys are just holding the baby up and stuff, right? Because nobody wants to show their real life on there. I'd like to have a real life social media one time so you can really see what people go through. Because behind those doors, you don't know. You got people going through all kinds of they'll never show or never tell anyone. And I wish people would learn that it's okay to talk about it and it's okay. That comes to that whole judging thing. People are so
Yeah.
worried people are going to think about them. Like what my mom used to say, like my mom was always worried about somebody saying something about anything, even like my tattoo. Well, what are they going to say about it? I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. I'm not doing anything to harm anybody. But that's the big thing that people, and I like what you said, that lady that just said that, we all go through it, just reach out to people. My biggest thing is
Mhm.
if something comes across your mind, send them a message, no matter what. Just send them a hi, because you never know. I know we only got a short minute of time, but I'm going to share something about that. One time a couple years ago, I saw a friend's Facebook post. It wasn't anything devastating, but I thought about her. So I sent her a message. I said, hey, how are you doing? And she messaged me back, and this was her exact word. She said, oh my God, you just saved my life. She's like, as much as I love my son, I'm going through a horrible divorce right now. And I was contemplating suicide at this moment. And I prayed and I said, God, please send me something so I don't do this. And my message came to her. Now, 2 years later, she's, divorced, happy, working, all of that. So that one message could save someone's life that you just don't know. But when they come across your mind, you got to remember to do that.
Wow. And I really feel like this topic, that thought just entered your mind for a reason. So if there's somebody listening right now that is thinking of somebody, or they know somebody that's out there struggling, just shoot them a message, let them know that you love them. So I feel like that was meant to be said. And I think that's like a great note to end it on too.
So
okay. So 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right?
Okay.
The first already.
I know.
Celebrating Christmas again. So I'm excited to talk to you again. I love doing these with you, Sonya. It's a blessing that we met. I thank Natasha for that. Thank God she put us together, because definitely a blessing. So yeah.
Yeah, it sure was. I'm grateful too.
Yes.
And we're grateful everybody joined us tonight. We'll see you guys again on the first Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thanks.